Welcome to our 5 on 5. Please welcome back Governor Kate Brown. Governor, good to see you. How are you today?
Great to see you. Thank you. Delighted to be back down again.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So I want to start with the Klamathon Fire, of course, starting in Northern California and heading into Jackson County. Have you been in contact with fire officials at all and monitoring the situation?
Absolutely, absolutely. I got a call on Saturday night. They asked for permission to use unmanned aerial vehicles in Oregon airspace. Of course, I granted it. We're monitoring the situation very closely, but I think it's a really good lesson of the upcoming, what we anticipate to be a really difficult wildfire season this year. So the last couple of summers have been quite challenging. So I just want to encourage Oregonians to be cautious about their use of fireworks, of outdoor mechanical tools like lawnmowers, and of course, where they're building fires, to be extremely careful. I've issued over 6 drought emergencies in counties around the state. So it's a really challenging year, and we all have to be very cautious.
There's a lot going on in Washington, D.C. that I know you're watching closely. You're against President Trump and Attorney General Jeff Sessions' efforts to chip away at or get rid of the Affordable Care Act. What can you do to ensure pre-existing health conditions or other elements of that law stay in place?
Well, I'm working really hard and meeting with Oregonians to hear their stories. I just met a young man by the name of Jacob. He is 16. He has a chronic heart condition. This is going to impact him for the rest of his life. And unfortunately, if this administration is successful, it will impact his career choices for his future because he wants to have health insurance coverage. So it's absolutely critical that we fight the administration's repeal of the coverage for folks with pre-existing conditions. So I'm working hard, I'm using my voice, and I want to encourage Oregonians to use their voices as well. We were successful in stopping the repeal of the Affordable Care Act, and I think if Americans speak out, if Oregonians speak out, we can be successful now as well.
There's been a lot of focus in the last 24 hours, of course, on the president's pick for the Supreme Court, Judge Brett Kavanaugh. What concerns do you have about Judge Kavanaugh potentially joining the nation's highest court?
Well, I think it's critically important that our judicial branch reflect the values of Americans and Americans' priorities. And I think there are a number of issues that I'm concerned about with the potential appointment of Judge Kavanaugh. Number one, I'm very concerned about health care access. I believe that all Oregonians and all Americans should have access to health care. And I'm concerned with this new appointment that the U.S. Supreme Court will continue to erode access to health care under the Affordable Care Act. The second piece I'm concerned about, frankly, is women's access to reproductive health care. I believe this is an important, private, fundamental decision that women should be making with their doctors, and don't believe the Supreme Court should be engaged in decision-making in those private, fundamental decisions. The second piece for me is access to elections. Oregonians are very fortunate. We have vote by mail, and we have our new automatic voter registration system, which really provides convenience and accessibility for voting, but that's not true across the rest of the country. And I'm very concerned that this new appointment and the U.S. Supreme Court will continue to erode the fundamental right of Americans to participate in our democracy, and that would be a shame.
We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll have much more in just a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back to our 5 on 5. We're going to be here with Governor Kate Brown. Governor, by the time voters get to their ballots this fall, you'll have been governor for more than 3.5 years. Why should they be confident that you can fix Oregon's PERS problem?
That's a great question. I've been able to bring Democrats and Republicans together to tackle some of the issues facing Oregon. We were able to get urban and rural Oregonians together to sustain funding for the Oregon Health Plan. We now have 94% of adults covered and 98% of children. I am most proud that we were able to get votes from across the aisle and around the state to cover every single child in the state. Secondly, we were able to bring folks together to invest in the most comprehensive transportation package in Oregon's history. Oregonians across the state said, we want investments in public transit. We did that. We want to make sure that we're investing in seismic resiliency, so our roads and bridges are resistant to an earthquake. We did that. We want to reduce congestion, and we're certainly investing in projects that will do that. And that took business leaders, it took elected officials, and we were able to bring everyone together to make that happen. We're already making strides on the PERS issues. I think there are 3 issues. Number 1, making sure we get the best rate of return on our investments. That's why we increased staffing at the State Department of Treasury. Secondly, to tackle the unfunded actuarial liability. The state's already tightening our belt and paying that debt down that we owe. And we're working with local jurisdictions, I think for the first time ever, to create a framework we can all work together to tackle the unfunded liability. The reason why that's important is because the Oregon Supreme Court has said that we have to keep our promises to Oregon retirees. And the third piece is making sure that public employees have some skin in the game. And I've already made sure that now about 98–99% of public employees at the state level are picking up their 6% contribution. And we're working to make sure that we create a positive framework going forward, that they share in the risks of the market as we move forward. The goal is, and all of these, is to reduce employer rates and make sure that we have more dollars going into our classrooms and more dollars to pay for Oregon State troopers.
Good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. All right, stay with us. We'll be right back.